The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriela Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
Good afternoon. Happy Valentine's Day weekend. Happy President's Day weekend. 3-day weekend coming up here with the markets closed on Monday. Meanwhile, a mixed finish to a volatile and down week on Wall Street today. Stocks finishing mixed, stabilizing after the previous session's big AI-driven sell-off. We did see the Dow Jones Industrial Average come in for a closing gain today of 49 points. Settling at 49,501. The S&P 500 of 3 points at 6,836. And the NASDAQ pulled back 50 at 22,547. The yield on the 10-year note is back down to 4.05%. The volatility index down today by 1%. For the week, we see the Dow down 1.2%. The S&P 500 down 1.4%. The NASDAQ tumbling 2.1% for the week. The NASDAQ move marking the index's fifth consecutive weekly drop, and that's the longest such streak we've seen since a 7-week slide that ended in May of 2022. Amazon has been taking a hit lately. Have you seen this? Investors currently enduring a brutal sell-off with Amazon. Amazon shares down 81 cents today at $198 and change. Amazon currently enduring a pretty brutal sell-off. In fact, in bear market territory. Stock down about 18.2% since, the beginning of the year. The longest losing streak for Amazon stock since July of 2006. Looks like Ring, which is owned by Amazon, taking the spotlight today. A partnership between Flock and Ring. Have you heard about this? Coming under scrutiny now after the Amazon doorbell company ran an ad during the Super Bowl that mentioned a search party feature that uses AI to help locate lost pets. Apparently, this has become controversial. Ring's decision to cancel his partnership with Flock coming as tech companies face growing pressure to re-examine their work with federal agencies. We did see Bitcoin move lower today and then rebound all over the place this week. Right now, Bitcoin is at around 68,850. It was a rough week for the cryptos for the most part, but a bit of a rebound here at the moment. Ethereum is back above 2,000 at 2,050. Doge at the moment at 9 cents. The inflation number today drove a lot of the action, showing inflation slowed a touch more than expected last month. And looks like lower gas prices nationwide helped that. Of course, not so much here in California. The report showed consumer price growth slowing to an annual rate of 2.4% in January, undershooting forecasts for 2.5% as prices for gas dropped alongside costs for used cars and trucks. Annual inflation did slow in the month of January, falling more than most economists had expected. What else is happening? Well, the price of oil very much in the spotlight as tensions rise in the Middle East. The USS Gerald R. Ford has now been ordered to move from the Caribbean Sea to the Middle East as President Trump weighs whether to take military action against Iran amid growing tensions in the region. The Department of Homeland Security will likely shut down for the second time in 2 weeks after another last-ditch effort to keep the department behind President Trump's immigration crackdown open came up short in the U.S. Senate. A Republican-led bill to fund DHS through the end of September was blocked by a Democratic filibuster yesterday, and many lawmakers from both sides left Washington last night, making it inevitable that the department will run out of money at midnight on Friday. We'll get an update on that and more from Grover Norquist coming up later this hour. He'll be joining us live, president of Americans for Tax Reform in Washington. And ahead of Valentine's Day tomorrow, we'll get some romantic ideas from Laurel House, who's a dating coach, a very prominent dating coach, well known here in Southern California. But first on your money, the markets, and the economy. Joining us live now, Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management and author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Frank. We've known that midterm election years are volatile by nature. This data goes all the way back to 1934, and sure enough, we're seeing that volatility now. You mentioned Amazon. It's one of the five major artificial intelligence hyperscalers that's spending big money, and with spending comes big debt. Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, Oracle, they're all issuing corporate bonds, and they're raising their debt levels. Plus, maybe there's some fatigue for these magnificent seven names. This week, Frank, it seems kind of crazy, but Alphabet issued a bond that matures in 100 years. And the demand for the 100-year bonds was described as insane. And this bond matures at a time we often refer to as someday, someday island. Now, I remember back in 1993 when the Disney company issued a 100-year bond that we referred to as the Sleeping Beauties. That's set to mature in 2093. For many of us, this is a place we might call Never Neverland. But you could see that Amazon and the other big hyperscalers are spending very big. It's a race to the finish, and not everybody, when the music stops, there won't be enough chairs.
Right, and then the software names took a hit recently, right? What are you doing any bottom fishing in that sector with the software names very much in focus in this AI and software shakeout we're seeing?
Absolutely. That the banks and the financial sectors have also sold off recently, and the sell-off in software and financial company stocks. I mean, based on the numbers, the revenue, the earnings for these companies has been overdone. These are the kinds of traditional companies, Frank, that are going to use AI, or they're beginning to use AI to lower costs, deliver better products and better services to the customers. So the old economy, industrials, healthcare sector, and certainly the traditional software companies look pretty attractive.
Very interesting. I've been hearing a lot of discussions lately about how AI will ultimately affect the economy and investments, and a lot of talk about how computers changed things when they came up in the 1980s, and then when the internet came up in the early 2000s, how ultimately it took several years before it did impact things in a significant way. Since you're also a market historian, what do you expect ahead with AI's impact on the economy and indeed the markets as well?
Frank, it's very reminiscent of the 1990s when it was about all things having to do with the internet.com communications, cell phone communications in particular. And, for those who lived through the exciting internet times, it is deja vu all over again. And artificial intelligence is actually, in some regards, you might say it's turning on its human creators, and the fears that companies using AI are going to replace the old incumbent operators have really hurt stocks across a wide swath of industries. You mentioned the software companies, insurance brokers, the data providers, the banks and asset managers. They've all fallen this week. And I think it's the fears are overdone, but it's the volatile midterm year phenomena.
All right, and then there's gold and silver, volatile once again this week, but gold wrapping up the week above 5,000 once again. Silver is just below $80 an ounce here. What are we to make of the latest moves in the precious metals, and what are your thoughts about going into the metals here now?
Frank, this is the third major gold bull market in modern history. And if history's any guide, it has a lot further to run. The big structural forces, of course, are the rising debt levels here in the United States and in the EU, geopolitics, concerns about the strength of the dollar and other currencies. The first big gold bull market occurred in the 1970s when Nixon took us off the gold standard. You might remember that. The second big gold market was in the early 2000s because suddenly you needed gold for some technology. And then if you look at the returns of those two big gold bull markets, they were better than 500% gains. The current bull market, which in gold began in 2022, has returned about 200%. So I think there's more to run. Same with silver. Silver has now been included on the U.S. critical minerals list, and there's a lot of momentum buying, and there's just not enough silver to go around, not yet.
All right, and then there's so-called digital gold. It looks like even big Bitcoin fans are getting away from that term nowadays. Bitcoin not holding up so well lately, getting down to around 60,000 after hitting the record high above 126,000 last year. Right now we're looking at it at around 68.8 here at the moment. Ethereum just above 2,000. I know you watch the cryptos. We talked to the biggest fans of crypto as well as the harshest critics, which we did again this week. If anyone wants to review the comments, so why don't you weigh in on crypto here and your thoughts about the latest price action?
Well, the irony, I think, Frank, is that when Wall Street adopted Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the cryptos as a trading mechanism, and they came up with a way for investors to easily buy and sell the cryptos, the exchange-traded funds, that was the beginning of the end of at least this phase of a bull market in cryptos. Some 200 public companies around the world now hold Bitcoin, for example, because it was easy to do. What if they start to sell? Clearly, institutions appear to be lightening up on some of the accumulation that occurred over the last couple of years. And then this week, we heard about the Clarity Act. This is the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, which has a goal to establish a regulatory framework for digital assets here. And they're trying to decide who's going to regulate Bitcoin and the other cryptos. Will it be the Securities and Exchange Commission or the Commodities Future Trading Corporation? Who's it going to be? Certainly, this is no longer a off-the-radar type of trading mechanism or even a currency. So that doesn't help.
Interesting, and I've also heard some interesting comments this week about how the prediction markets are may start to be competing with crypto as people go to their smartphones and start playing with the prediction markets now as well as an additional choice. So that long list of cryptos, is that something that you're hearing as well?
Yeah, well, that's right. Now that's just made betting so easy. It's as easy as listening to any song on demand. It's as easy as finding out what's happening in the world. You can bet on pretty much anything. And and I don't know what the odds are for Bitcoin over the next couple of years, but I wouldn't count it out.
Very interesting. And what about what's happening with the latest readings on the economy? You're also an economist. We did get new readings on inflation, which came in better than expected. We got the delayed jobs report on Wednesday. We got a new Fed chairman who's been nominated by President Trump, Kevin Warsh. And a lot of moving parts here. And the other big story, actually, February 20th now apparently is the latest date that the Supreme Court might rule on President Trump's tariffs. So a lot going on here. What do you see ahead for the economy and the potential ruling against the president on the tariffs?
Well, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. With regard to inflation, one of the big concerns among members of the Federal Open Market Committee was where inflation is coming from. The inflation categories are especially important because Fed officials have been on the lookout for price increases related to tariffs, and if some sectors are inflating, but they're not subject to tariffs, if you see rising prices regardless of tariffs, that could be a larger concern for the Fed. One thing about these numbers, Frank, especially the 12-month inflation rates, they've been distorted by the federal government shutdown for most of this year. We had gaps from October. The Bureau of Labor Statistics had to assume no change in prices for the majority of the components of the CPI. That's not very real. And the distortion is not unusual. Last September, the Bureau of Labor Statistics revised their jobs numbers downward by almost 1 million jobs. 911,000 jobs that everybody thought existed never existed. And why? Because of artificial intelligence. It's increasing productivity, but workers are being laid off. That's created a good deal of uncertainty here.
On the air live with Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management, and we're awaiting some news out of the Middle East with the military buildup continuing there. An additional carrier reportedly heading in that direction as well. In the meantime, the price of oil hovering just below $63 a barrel here at the moment. Nervous time in the Middle East. What about oil and all this, and the defense contractors and the other names you're watching in the face of this latest Middle East crisis?
Well, the Pentagon has said it's going to invest $1 billion in a number of different missile contractors to turbocharge production of weapons, and the focus on making rocket parts for the U.S. and its allies, including the Patriot missile, has the whole sector running pretty hot. Lockheed Martin struck a deal with the Pentagon to more than triple production of the Patriot, for example. We're going to hear about saber rattling and oil. As you mentioned, the lower price of oil helped the consumer price index. It actually weighed on inflation, brought it down. So that was positive. But this is a real wild card. If Iran shuts the Straits of Hormuz, we could see prices go way up. I certainly wouldn't give up on oil.
All right. At this point, Gabriel Wisdom, any other specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Frank, ChatGPT was released November 2022. Everybody overweighted in the Magnificent Seven companies. Worked out great. But then it didn't. It's those companies. There's some mag fatigue, let's call it. The other 493 companies of the S&P 500, they're benefiting from AI. As I mentioned, they're lowering costs, they're delivering better products, and so forth. So I'm looking at the Standard & Poor's 493 exchange traded fund. I think it's interesting. XMAG doesn't have the Mag 7. It has the other 493. XMAG includes Broadcom, Eli Lilly, JP Morgan, Berkshire Hathaway, ExxonMobil, Visa, MasterCard, Walmart, and so forth. And then the banks of the financial sectors, I think they're oversold. So I'm looking there.
Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management, author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for taking the call to wrap up another eventful week, and look forward to speaking with you again very soon. We wish you a great 3-day holiday weekend.
You as well, Frank. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriela Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
This isn't your average podcast.
Do you like party?
I do like a huge chug of tequila.
The Howlerhead whiskey bottle chug in front of Dana White. That was the first time we ever went to LA. We somehow got into a Diddy party. What's an Elon Musk house party look like?
My parties generally have very high production value.
This is Full Send.
I do want to do a lot more pranks. Bunch of different pranks.
Join the party.
Jack Doherty in the house. Feeling good, man. What are we going to talk about with Will Smith?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Shout out to Theo Vaughn.
It's been entertaining, dude.
The Full Send podcast.
Grab the boys, grab the beers. Let's do it.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mixed finish to the stock market today with wrapping up a volatile week, as we just discussed with veteran market analyst Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management. The Dow came in for a closing gain today of 49 points, 49,501. Yeah, the Dow started the week at 50K and then pulled back from record highs. The S&P 500 of 3 points at the bell at 6,836. The NASDAQ down 50 points at 22,547 as the tech names came under selling pressure again this week. NVIDIA pulling back more than 4 today at 182 and change. Apple down nearly 6 at 255 and change. Amazon has taken a big haircut lately, down 81 cents today at 198.79. Microsoft down 52 cents at 401.32. Taking a look at the price of gold, it got a pop today of $115 and change, back to $5,063.80 an ounce. Silver up $1.59 at 77.27 an ounce. Tesla shares of 37 cents at 417.44. Successful launch of that rocket today, carrying astronauts to the International Space Station. We see Bitcoin right now, which had a rough week, rebounding a bit today, up 115 now to 68,850. Ethereum at 2,050, and Doge at the moment at 9 cents. The volatility index, the VIX index, pulling back 1% today. Taking a look at Coinbase, which took a big hit this week as the cryptos tanked. Coinbase shares rebounding today at more than $23 at 164 and change. Strategy, Michael Saylor's company that takes in a lot of Bitcoin and sitting on pretty impressive losses at this point, rebounding today at more than $10 at 133 and change. Bitmine Immersion, that's Thomas Lee's firm focused on Ethereum, up $1.22 today at 20.96. On the economy, we did get a new reading on inflation today. Consumer prices did rise 2.4% in January compared to a year earlier, cooler than most analysts had expected. They were expecting a reading of 2.7%, and it came in below the 2.5% analysts were expecting by analysts talking to the Wall Street Journal. Core prices, which strip out the food and energy, rose 2.5% from a year earlier. That came in line with analysts' expectations. Labor Department reading follows a better-than-expected January jobs report, which came out on Wednesday this week, and another delayed report due to government shutdown. There's talk about another government shutdown. We'll talk more about that coming up here shortly with Grover Norquist, President of Americans for Tax Reform. That and more straight ahead. Motac on Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Could be another government shutdown, partial government shutdown, any minute now. A lot going on the tax front, too, with billionaires fleeing California to other states. A lot to talk about now with Grover Norquist, America's leading taxpayer advocate, president of Americans for Tax Reform in Washington. Grover Norquist, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
Thank you very much. And what's the latest on this another government shutdown, which could happen in the next couple hours here?
Well, the government shutdowns are getting smaller and smaller because there's less and less of the government that hasn't been funded. The Republican leadership did a very good job of getting a number of the major appropriation bills enacted with Democrat support. I still don't quite understand how this happened. They came out $18 billion down from before, so it's actually net negative. That's a small cut, but you had Democrats agreeing to it. Now, the one thing the Democrats want to shut the government down about, and again, they're only going to shut down either a piece of the Department of Homeland Security. They want to target ICE itself. Is they want to have an argument about immigration and about how ICE has behaved in various cities and states. That's a limited fight. That's a fight you have, and you could, you think, have that debate nationally without shutting down a piece of the government. But it's more dramatic, and I think the Democrats are trying to show their financial supporters and their base that, we really, really, really care. We'll shut down the government. They used to say they were against shutting down the government, but to make a point, but now they're for it. It won't be as problematic as the one that went for quite some time for a lot of the government, but it'll be somewhat disruptive.
Would have been unthinkable after 9/11 to shut down the Department of Homeland Security. And, of course, at this critical moment with so much happening in the Middle East and elsewhere around the world, that's what's going to happen, right? The Department of Homeland Security is going to be shut down. What is the practical impact of this latest shutdown?
Well, they can always move money around a little bit for some time, but I don't know how long. And if TSA was threatened, if what the Democrats are doing threatens TSA, my guess is they'll have to back up and go away from that. I don't think they'll be able to maintain it. They have talked about, sort of trying to make it only ICE, which as opposed to all of Department of Homeland Security. It's just a political game right now. They're trying to make a point. They're trying to get attention to something that they want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the good economic news that's taking place. And they certainly aren't interested in the debate in what happens with Russia and Ukraine or with Iran. They don't have anything particularly useful that they put forward on Iran or Cuba and Venezuela. So talk about ICE.
Yeah. And looks like we got a holiday weekend here, so everybody's getting out of Dodge there, right? So no action until what, next week sometime?
Yes. No, I don't think they'll be doing anything for a while. They don't come back until next week, Monday's holiday. And the big talk right now is the discussion about how the economy has strengthened and visibly 172,000 private sector jobs this in January. There were 42,000 fewer government jobs. Matter of fact, there are over 300,000 fewer government jobs than a year ago. So what you're seeing is more private sector productive jobs, fewer government tax-eating jobs by over 300,000. It's a big, serious number, and keep this up for 4 years, and you save a lot of money for taxpayers.
On the Air Live with Grover Norquist, and was thinking about you this week with all this news about all the billionaires leaving California. Not all, but a lot of them, including Mark Zuckerberg from Meta. That's the parent company of Facebook. The latest California billionaire heading to Florida, buying a big mansion there, and others, of course, are also leaving in anticipation of this billionaires tax. You founded your organization back during the days of President Reagan, as we honor our presidents this weekend. President Reagan certainly was a very important person in your life who you created the organization that you now head with President Reagan, right, at his urging. Tell us about some of the history of Americans for tax reform and your connection to President Reagan, who, of course, served as governor of California and then later as president.
Yes, President Reagan had the tax cut that passed in 1981. It was a 25% tax reduction. He wanted 33%, 1/3, which is roughly what John F. Kennedy got. It was a tax cut almost exactly the same shape as the one that John F. Kennedy pushed for and that passed in 1964, shortly after his death. But that gave us strong growth in the 60s, and then Reagan's gave us tremendous growth in the 80s. It took 3 years. There's a 5%, 10% cut, 5% cut the first year, 81, 10% in 82, 10% in 83. And on January of 83, in that year, 1983, 4 million jobs were created, 4 million jobs. And you had strong economic growth going through the rest of the 80s. In 1986, he said, you know what, let's take those rates down again. And this time it's something that even the Democrats, a bunch of Democrats voted with us back in 81, because there were some pro-growth Democrats then. There really aren't anymore any Democrats that focus on economic growth. They just focus on moving money from one pocket to another, unfortunately. But in 1986, we got Republicans and Democrats to vote for taking the top rate, which had been 50%, down to 27. There were two rates, 15 and 27, 28, I believe, at the end of the day, 28. And then, and the corporate rate went down to 34 from 50. So serious rate reduction. And the base was broad. They eliminated a lot of deductions and credits that were largely politically driven. And it was to pass that bill, lower rates again. And again, which Ted Kennedy voted for. I mean, the Democrats back then wanted economic growth. Now they don't talk about economic growth anymore. But at the time they did, but we had to, when you're getting rid of a bunch of deductions and credits that are special interest benefits for some people, that's going to take some work to get it done. And so Reagan wanted a group set up, and we organized American. Actually, they got it organized and asked me to run it, Americans for Tax Reform, and we campaigned for tax reform. And the most effective thing we did was we got 100 congressmen, Republicans, in the House and 20 senators to sign a pledge that they'd never support a tax increase in the future. So if we took the rates down, it would be very difficult for them to go back up again. That was the point there. And when we had that commitment and people felt, okay, if we bring the rates down, they'll really stay down there, that's when the Republicans said, okay, we're all in. The Republicans all voted for it. And it became such a big deal in the election in 1986 and in 88 that a lot of candidates said, I'm taking the pledge too. I'm never going to vote for a tax increase. And that's when in 1988, all the Republicans running for president except Robert Dole from Kansas, who was the front runner, he wouldn't take the pledge because he was an old Republican that was willing to raise taxes. He lost in New Hampshire, and then he lost. Bush took the pledge, said, read my lips, I'm never going to raise taxes, won the primary, won the general. He was 19 points down at one point against Dukakis, and that's when he said, I'm never going to raise taxes, and Dukakis will. And then he won the election. But then he broke it in 90, and in 94, all the Republicans, and then he lost in 92 because he'd broken his pledge not to raise taxes. And that's when the Republicans said, we see the power of the pledge, that if you make the commitment in writing, it's not to me, by the way, which the Democrat Senate leaders used to say, I promised Dr. Grover. No, they don't. It's to the American people that they will not increase taxes. And you had 96% of all the candidates take the pledge, and the Republicans swept the House and Senate. They'd only controlled the House and the Senate twice in 62 years. And now since they became the party that wouldn't raise taxes, they've won Congress 18 years, and the Democrats only 6. And then it's split for another 6 years. So this is a huge, huge change between the parties. Don't raise taxes is the winning political issue.
On the air live with Grover Norquist. It's high time that this audience heard that great story, Grover, so thank you very much for sharing that. Fast forward to the present with President Trump taking the axe to regulations, including, again, this week. Certainly, it's a hidden tax on Americans, regulations, as you've written about. Tell us about the latest actions here and what it means to affordability and to the taxpayers out there.
Yeah, there is $1 trillion in regulatory burden that's now been lifted off the American people, your ability to buy a car, all of these things. And this is something that only bureaucrats did. Nobody voted for this. The Green New Deal, which put all these regulations on cars, and they have to be made out of tinfoil so that they only use so much energy, and this thing, one thing and another. It's a huge, huge problem. Sorry, cough. But they've now undone that because they said no, that you can't do this regulatory. You could pass a law if you want, but you can't do this through regulation, which is what they did do, and they made it stick, and they had judges that said sure, and we finally got that undone. So we are going to go into a world where cars will be made the way people want them to, where when you buy a washing machine or a dryer, it's not going to be designed to some bureaucrat specifications, but they'll actually ask you, do you want to wait 2 hours to get your washing done, or would you like to be able to do it quicker? And the dryer, the same thing. So all parts of life are made simpler. And that's $1 trillion of affordability. I know the Democrats discovered the word affordability. They're the ones who gave us a lack of affordability by adding $1 trillion to the trillion with a T, not a B, $1 trillion to the cost of a car, to heating your house, to washing your dishes, to drying your clothes, to having an air conditioner. All of this stuff was made more expensive, and it'll now be less expensive going into the future. It is a huge, huge change.
Grover, thank you very much for laying it out so clearly. Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform in Washington. We wish you a great holiday weekend, Grover, and thank you very much for taking the call here. Thank you very, very much.
The UCLA men's basketball season's in full swing, and we need you to get to Pauley Pavilion to support the Bruins. Don't miss a single chance to see this year's exciting team, led by Donovan Dent, Eric Daly Jr., Sky Clark, and Tyler Bilodeau. Pauley Pavilion, presented by Westcon Financials, the home of the greatest tradition in all of college basketball. We can't wait to have you join us as the Bruins continue to build on that legacy. With big-time matchups, go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today before it's too late. Let's get Pauley rocking.
This isn't your average podcast.
This is one of the most, if not the most controversial podcasts.
This is Full Send.
Do you like party ever?
I think Post Malone told me once he went to like one of your parties.
What was the biggest after party you guys ever did?
We had one with you guys.
I know,
that
was
lit.
Unfiltered conversations.
I'm not going to say any names, but
We got Dr. Phil pulling up. Jake Paul's coming in today.
Benjamin Netanyahu, he's about to walk into the podcast right now.
I feel like he'd leave.
Yeah, maybe.
The Full Send podcast.
This is so crazy.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Motec on Money continues here on 790 KABC. Did you forget? It's Valentine's Day tomorrow. Noticed a lot of people in downtown Los Angeles in the Flower District today picking things up. Feeling romantic this weekend? Will Cupid's arrow find its mark? Ahead of Valentine's Day tomorrow, let's bring in the expert on all things Valentine's Day, and that is Laurel House, dating, relationship, and behavioral dynamics expert, eHarmony relationship coach, and creator co-host of the show Rom-Con, where love and true crime collide. A longtime friend Laurel House joining us live here just ahead of Valentine's Day weekend. Laurel, wonderful to have you with us. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's great to hear your voice, especially right before the day of love.
Yes. Yes, well, I'm elated that you're available today. I'm sure it's probably the busiest time of the year for you. Is it too late to plan something for Valentine's Day if you're just hearing on the air right now with us that it is Valentine's Day tomorrow?
It is never too late, because the most meaningful thing you can give someone on Valentine's Day isn't actually something that you buy. It's emotional accuracy, which means thoughtfulness.
That's beautiful. Give us some ideas, please.
All right. So I've actually heard many people who say, wait a second, it's Valentine's Day? I forgot. I only remembered because my kid at school celebrated Valentine's Day. So instead of considering a price tag, consider how your partner feels. Last minute doesn't have to mean low effort. In fact, what people crave most is that feeling that their partner understands them. So what you need to do is, instead of asking, what should I do for Valentine's Day? Think about one small thing that you miss, that you and your partner used to do that made you feel close, and do it again. Relationships don't drift because love disappears. They drift because the rituals that created connection quietly fall away, especially when we have these very busy lives and those little things can be forgotten. So something as simple as sitting on the sofa with your partner, playing cards, and having a glass of wine. It's that familiar connection that regulates the nervous system, and it's that safety that allows love to deepen. But don't just sit on the sofa and have a glass of wine. Actually say, I've been thinking about the things that you and I used to do together that made us feel so connected and that we would have so much fun doing. And one of those things is this. So today for Valentine's Day, I want to come back to us. I bought us a special bottle of wine. I got some new playing cards. I want to dedicate time to just being together.
Wonderful. And music can also be a big part of this too, right? Every year I get somewhat of a chuckle out of the most popular songs for Valentine's Day. Of course, the beautiful song by Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, and All of Me by John Legend, I guess, are among tops of the list. And I got a chuckle when the story came up again today. Somebody had suggested My Baby Takes the Morning Train as a romantic song, and so maybe you can help us in the music department as well.
Absolutely. It's whatever is connective for you and your partner. Every single relationship has different things. So really taking a minute to go back to your past together and then bringing that back in and reliving it. Because here's the thing, flowers are beautiful, diamonds always a plus, chocolate, yes, and love doesn't always need novelty. Sometimes it just means it needs remembering. And it's in that memory that you reignite the safety and really the fire of the relationship. So bring back the meaning, write a letter, write a note, write a card that says what you're doing and why, and let them know that you've actually put a lot of thought into this. It's not just a throwaway holiday for you.
Fantastic. On the You're Live with Laurel House. And people get scammed this time of the year, too. I know you do a great show focused on rom-cons, right? Could be a dangerous time of the year for people looking for love. Tell us about what's happening out there.
Yeah, so Valentine's Day is actually one of the most expensive times of year for singles, and that's because of romance cons. I call them rom-cons. And actually, it's been shown, according to the FBI, that it is a $1.4 billion a year industry in the United States when romance scammers target people who are not desperate, but open. And what's difficult about the openness is that it's that openness that is exactly what makes someone a great partner, someone who is thoughtful, hopeful, emotionally available. Well, that's what scammers are as well. It could be as simple as you receiving a text saying, "Hey, so sorry I'm late. Can I pick you up at 8?" And you say, "I don't know who this person is, but you know what? I'm lonely. I'm a little bored. I'm a little bit, sad and vulnerable tonight. So I'll respond, 'Sorry, I don't know who you are. Who is this?'" And then they send you a photo of someone who looks really nice, who looks really safe, and you start communicating with this person. The goal for them actually at the end of the day is to con you. It's not just to be your friend. So the red flags that you have to look for that you're being rom-conned are fast emotional intimacy, early I love yous, future promises before meeting, sudden emergencies, requests to move off of reputable apps, financial asks disguised as temporary help, an inability to meet in person or even a video call, and constant excuses paired with emotional closeness. It's a time of a lot of confusion. And my show Rom-Conned, I co-host with a criminologist, Dr. Alex Del Carmen, and we break down romance scams so that victims can have an understanding of what actually happened instead of thinking, "I'm so ashamed that I was scammed financially, emotionally, sexually, whatever it is," and instead think, "You know what? I trusted." And there's nothing wrong with trusting. In fact, trust is a human need, and unfortunately, the con artists are using it against us.
And these are issues, of course, year-round, not just on Valentine's Day. On your Live with Laurel House, what are some of the other trends nowadays as far as dating apps and so forth, or is meeting in person coming back nowadays?
Well, meeting in person is definitely something that's becoming more popular because people are feeling a little bit of app fatigue. They're sick of just that right and left swiping. Another trend lately is actually financially motivated, which is moving in much sooner than you might normally feel comfortable as a real-life test run of, can we make this relationship work and simultaneously save some money by living together and seeing what happens? Why not? So people are moving in and seeing if they're a fit romantically and in the real world in terms of living together. And if they're not, well, you have a new roommate or you move out. But that is one way that people are really figuring out much more quickly if someone's a fit and simultaneously saving money. Another trend right now is called prioridating, which is really having your priority be the only thing that you focus on when it comes to dating. So if you look at your priority as a triangle, it's what do you really need more than anything else. You get one need. It's not just going to be that they're attractive or that they're fun. What is the one most important thing? That's the top of the triangle. And you look at every single person based on that one thing. And then it's having the 10-point attraction system. So you establish what your 10-point system is. Is it looks? Is it fun? Is it they make you feel safe, sexy, seen, and special? What are the 10 points? Then you gauge every single date on those 10 points. So if they are only hot and wealthy, well, you got 2 points out of 10. So I would say that's a loss. So instead, look at other reasons why you might be attracted to someone and focus on those, because you can actually be very attracted to someone, even sexually attracted to someone, for the other things on your 10-point attraction system that don't have to do with looks, good body, or money.
Fantastic. Well, as always, you are totally on point, Laurel House, on all of this, especially as we head into the Valentine's weekend. A lot of people should pack their patience, though. It gets pretty busy. People that don't go out the whole year go out on Valentine's, right, for dinner or lunch?
Yes. Valentine's Day is definitely the craziest day for restaurants. So I would suggest instead staying in. Make something special, light some candles, have a beautiful special night at home, and then say, and I made a reservation for next Saturday, because the truth is also on Valentine's Day, a lot of chefs are not able to put all of their energy in creating the great meal because there are just so many people coming into the restaurant.
Laurel, thank you very much. You're terrific. We wish you a happy Valentine's Day weekend, and thank you very, very much for joining us live here. Laurel House, dating, relationship, and behavioral dynamics expert, eHarmony relationship coach, and her terrific show is focused on rom-con. Watch out for those romantic scams out there. Thanks for joining us here, 790 KBC.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriela Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.